My boyfriend of 6 years got married in a flash with his childhood sweetheart while I was studying abroad. After I returned to China, he came to me, claiming that he had his own difficulties. Later, his wife showed me her cancer diagnosis report and said, "So what if you're his first love? I have cancer and I won't get treated. A living person can't compete with a dead one. This time, I'll win." Well, who would want a divorced man from her family? Why can't those tragic love stories stand on their own without the involvement of the first love? On the day I returned to China, my ex-boyfriend Jason somehow got the news and came to block me at the airport. I didn't originally want to get into his car, but he stood in front of a bunch of taxis. The other cars couldn't get through, and the sound of horns was deafening. I hated such a noisy environment the most, so I could only frown and get into the car. I treated him like a driver and directly gave the address after getting in. Before I could finish speaking, Jason interrupted, "I know it." I sneered and didn't say anything more. Of course he knew. During the 4 years in college, he had sent me home countless times on weekends. Even my parents had warmly entertained him before. Since I didn't speak, an awkward silence filled the car. I irritably rolled down the window and lit a cigarette. If it were 2 years ago, I might have excitedly asked him about the reason for the breakup as soon as I saw Jason. We had clearly agreed to wait for me to come back. Why did he suddenly propose to break up and get married in a flash? Just the night before, we were still having a video call, looking forward to the future, but 2 years was enough for me to figure out that once we broke up, it was over. The facts were right in front of me, and all the questions were meaningless. Jason seemed to be concentrating on driving, but actually he kept looking at me from the corner of his eye. The car was going fast, and most of the cigarette dissipated in the wind. "You didn't smoke before." His deep voice rang out in the car. I sneered, "You said before, too." In the past 2 years abroad, with the academic pressure and the heartbreak of the breakup, I learned all kinds of ways to relieve stress. Fortunately, I never crossed the bottom line and managed to get through it. Jason was silent for a moment and said, "Jocelyn, you've changed a lot." I lowered my eyes and glanced at the ferry seat sticker on the front of the passenger seat and said, "The name Jocelyn is not something Mr. Jason can call me now." Jason's brows furrowed, and he didn't refute. He just gripped the steering wheel a bit harder for no reason. Silence fell in the car again. It was only a 40-minute drive from the airport to my home. On the way, Jason hesitated several times when he wanted to say something, but I just ignored him. Actually, no matter how much I tried to convince myself, I still held a grudge in my heart. We had been in love for 6 years, and just when we were about to get a happy ending, he got married to someone else in a flash. Although there's no regret in youth, I never thought the ending would be so disgusting. Jason and I met in our sophomore year. The beginning of a campus romance is always rather cliched. He came to the medical university to visit a friend but fell in love with me at first sight. At that time, he was already a prominent figure in the finance department of the neighboring university. He was handsome and came from a good family. Except for being a bit arrogant, he was almost flawless, but that arrogance turned into tenderness when he was in front of me. At that time, the only reason I convinced myself to reject him was that our families were not well matched. But when people fall in love for the first time, everyone thinks that love can overcome all difficulties, especially at that time. Jason gave me all his sincerity and passion. I coughed twice when I met him in the morning, and in the afternoon, I could receive the rock sugar and pear stew he made by himself. For a person born with a silver spoon in his mouth and detached from worldly affairs, his thoughtfulness was especially precious in everyone's eyes. Later, on the day we made our relationship public, he set off hundreds of fireworks on the school playground to give me a full sense of ceremony. The brilliance of the fireworks lit up most of the campus sky at night. I looked at his side face illuminated by the firelight and confessed my love softly. At that time, I probably couldn't have imagined that our love would be like the fireworks, leaving only loneliness and a stinking smell of gunpowder after blooming. Just stop here. The memories came to an abrupt end. The car stopped right at the entrance of the community as I said. I knocked on the car door, but Jason didn't unlock it. I turned around to look at him. His eyes were deep. After a while, he said uncomfortably, I'll help you take the suitcase inside. I just looked at him without saying a word until Jason awkwardly looked away. Then I said, Jason, there's no need for us to meet again in the future. He took a deep breath and said, Jocelyn, don't be so heartless. At least we can still be friends. Be friends? Be friends with my ex-boyfriend who's already married? That sounded ridiculous. Jason, don't forget that you're already married. What on earth did you want to say all the way but hesitated? 2 years ago, you owed me an explanation, but now I don't need it anymore. We can never be friends. Goodbye. After getting out of the car, I walked home without looking back. I sincerely hoped that this would be our last meeting. I didn't expose him and calmly hung up the phone. Then I sent the list of winners of the math competition posted on the blackboard of the classroom to Grandpa. Behind Jason's seamless transition, how could she be innocent? In the second half of our sophomore year, after Jason and I got together, he took the initiative to take me to meet his friends. Aria was the only girl among those people, the sister of Jason's buddy. In a way, Jason and Aria were childhood sweethearts. When I saw Aria for the first time, I knew that she liked Jason. She thought she had hidden it well, but when she was smiling and chatting, her eyes always unconsciously followed Jason. Jason's friends seemed to know this open secret too. Of course, they liked Aria more than me. One of them jokingly said to Jason, Jason, are you acting in an idol drama? The stubborn and delicate little white flower and the handsome and wealthy second-generation rich kid. TSK, love. You've made us so envious. Jason thought his friend was really envious, but I heard the sarcasm in it. The term, stubborn and delicate little white flower, probably wasn't quite suitable for a medical student. Considering Jason's face, I didn't lose my temper on the spot. Then his friend pushed his luck and teased Aria. Jason is taken now, but we brothers are still single. Aria looked uncomfortable, glanced at Jason, and coquettishly told him not to talk nonsense. Jason also frowned and told his friend not to joke around. He wasn't stupid. He probably had some sense of Aria's secret love. Throughout the whole party, except for saying hello at the beginning, I felt a kind of subtle neglect. A bunch of second-generation rich kids really knew how to make people feel embarrassed without making it too awkward. I had never been the type to swallow my anger, but considering Jason, I waited until the party was over before getting angry. I knew the gap between us, so I was especially sensitive. This was also one of the reasons why I went abroad later. Jason rubbed my head and explained the matter of Aria to me. He said that he had already rejected Aria before, but after all, she was a girl, and he didn't want to be too harsh. Seeing that I was jealous, Jason was rather happy and even teased me a couple of times. As for the problem with his friends, he said he would handle it and told me not to worry about it. Later, when we had a fight, I learned that Jason had silently blocked and deleted all the contact information of that friend. Back then when we were young, I was touched by how much he valued me. Now looking back, maybe the ending of our relationship had already shown signs at that time, perhaps because I saw Jason during the day. I dreamed about the scene when we broke up 2 years ago at night. It was a very ordinary morning. I saw a strangely shaped cloud in the sky, took a picture of it, and was excited to share it with Jason. But he didn't reply until evening. Just as I was about to call to ask, he sent a message, let's break up. Just 5 simple words, without any explanation. But I knew he was serious. We had agreed that we would never joke about this. I couldn't help feeling flustered and my hands were shaking. I went crazy sending messages and making calls to Jason. But it was like he had vanished from the world. He didn't reply to a single word. I even ridiculously fantasized that he might have an incurable disease and suddenly said he wanted to break up just to not make me sad. But all the excuses I could find for him became extremely ridiculous after seeing the wedding photos in Aria's WeChat moments. In the photos, Aria was wearing a white wedding dress and smiling brightly while holding Jason's arm. Although Jason looked expressionless, in the middle of the 9-square grid layout, there was an obviously candid kissing photo, the alarm clock rang faintly as if it came from another world. The suffocating feeling in the dream gradually faded away. I picked up my phone and saw a text message from an unknown number. "I'm Arya. I know you're back in China. Let's meet. I'll tell you the truth about 2 years ago." I ignored it and directly blocked the number. She and Jason were already things of the past. The truth didn't matter to me anymore. After taking a few days to rest, I went to report to the city hospital. Saving lives and helping the wounded has been my dream since I was a child. During that gloomy period, it was also this dream that led me out of the abyss of self-doubt. One day, I had just finished seeing a patient and was about to take a lunch break when someone knocked on the door. I thought it was a little nurse coming to ask me to have lunch, so I took off my white coat and went to open the door. "Why is it you?" It was Arya with a rather pale face standing outside the door. Seeing that I opened the door, she forced an awkward smile and said, "Jocelyn, I want to talk to you." In the coffee shop downstairs of the hospital, before I could say anything, Arya ordered 2 iced Americanos. I raised my eyebrows but didn't say anything. Iced Americanos were always my favorite. It seemed that Arya knew me quite well. Only then did I notice that her dressing style was a bit familiar, somewhat like how I dressed in college. I folded my arms and was really impatient with this situation. "Well, tell me. What do you want to talk about?" "Jocelyn, you know that Jason and I are childhood sweethearts." Arya began to tell me how she had been secretly in love with Jason when she was young. One danger, one helping hand, was enough for a young girl to remember. I thought I could wait until he turned around and noticed me, but Jocelyn, you showed up. From Arya's perspective, this was probably a cliched story of the childhood sweetheart losing to the one who came into his life later. When the latter went abroad, her long-hidden love finally came true, but then the latter came back again, but I had already withdrawn from this drama 2 years ago. She just had to come to me and make me feel sick. She was about to continue talking, but I didn't want to listen anymore. So I raised my hand to interrupt her and took out my phone to play music. The coffin is buried deep in the valley bottom. There's no eternal secret. Everyone who gets involved in the Jianghu will end in tragedy. Go on. Arya's face turned ugly. "Jocelyn, what do you mean?" I sneered and stopped the music. "Nothing much. I just think that from your perspective, the story seems rather heartrending. So I played some music for you to help you express your emotions better." "You." Arya was so angry that she was almost out of breath. Then, as if she remembered something, she calmed down and showed a sarcastic smile. She said, "Jocelyn, do you think I don't know? It was Jason who picked you up on the day you returned to China. Was it comfortable sitting in the passenger seat of someone else's husband?" I also smiled. "How's it going with the ex-boyfriend trained by others? Is he useful? What's the use of your being stubborn? You came back to win Jason back, right? Hee, as long as I don't give up my position, you'll always be nothing but a despicable mistress." I looked surprised and said, "So you also know that mistresses are despicable? When I was with Jason back then, you came to him on your own initiative. I thought you didn't know. Near the end of the junior year, Jason hurt his foot while playing basketball. I was busy with exams and couldn't take care of him at the same time. Jason said he would ask a friend to come to take care of him. But when I went to see him after the exams, it was Arya who opened the door. At that time, Jason said to me impatiently, I asked around, but I didn't tell her or her brother. Everyone else promised to come, but in the end, it was still her who came. I told her it was inconvenient, but she wouldn't listen. This incident made me feel so disgusted that I couldn't help having a quarrel with Jason and snapping at Arya several times. In front of Jason, Arya didn't refute a word. She just covered her face and ran away crying. After that, all of Jason's friends knew about this incident and felt sorry for Arya. They thought that I, as a girlfriend, was incompetent and unreasonable, and even Jason was affected. However, was it so difficult to find a nurse in 2 days? Perhaps my words stimulated Arya, and she began to reveal some secrets. She said, Jocelyn, what are you so proud of? Who do you think made the rock sugar and pear soup back then? Who do you think helped buy those fireworks through connections? Who do you think picked out your birthday gifts every year? I was stunned. I really hadn't expected that there had been traces of another woman behind what I had thought were romantic and considerate things. I felt as disgusted as if I had eaten a fly and couldn't even help retching. But I still retorted toughly, so being a bootlicker for someone else's boyfriend is something you're so proud of. Arya was enraged by me. She picked up the untouched iced Americano and splashed it at me. I instinctively raised my hand to block it, but some liquid still splashed on my face. I shook my hand, stood up, and splashed the iced Americano in front of me back at her. Obviously, Arya hadn't expected this. The coffee splashed all over her face. She screamed, looking rather. Just then, Jason arrived. He was stunned for a moment when he saw Arya's messy appearance, but he still grabbed her arm and asked sharply, "Didn't you say you came to the hospital for an examination? What are you doing here?" Apologize to Jocelyn. Arya's eyes instantly turned red and she began to argue with Jason. I didn't say a word and turned around to leave. I wasn't an NPC. There was no reason for me to stand by and play a supporting role while they were acting out a drama of bitter love. Both of them were equally disgusting. Besides feeling disgusted, I couldn't stir up any other emotions in my heart. "Jocelyn!" Jason called out and wanted to chase after me. I quickly quickened my pace. After returning to the hospital, I learned that Arya hadn't come specifically to find me today. She had come to the gynecology department for a biopsy. It seemed that the results of her previous physical examination were not optimistic and there were lesions in her uterus. No wonder she was so easily out of control emotionally. However, she was neither my patient nor my friend. Whether she was sick or not had nothing to do with me. When I got home in the evening, my parents mentioned a few words about arranging blind dates for me at the dinner table. It's not that we must have a result. Just think of it as making friends. Our Jocelyn is so beautiful and excellent. There will always be lots of boys who like you at any time. My parents knew about my relationship with Jason, and when they said this, their expressions were also cautious. I felt a twinge in my heart. Perhaps compared to whether I got married or not, they were more worried that I would be trapped in memories and unable to get out. I had always been stubborn since I was a child. Even if I said that I had let it go, they wouldn't believe me. So I simply agreed. On the weekend, I put on some light makeup and went to the reserved Western restaurant. I'm quite punctual. I arrived about half an hour early. While I was sitting there, lost in thought after ordering a glass of juice, a clear voice suddenly rang out beside me, "It's you." I turned my head and saw a handsome boy in casual clothes looking at me in surprise. I asked hesitantly, "Sir, do we know each other?" He said, "2 years ago, on the street in Country M, you saved me. Do you remember?" I looked carefully at his face. He had deep-set eyes and an outstanding appearance that was unforgettable at first sight. If I had seen him before, I couldn't have forgotten him. Seeing that I was trying to recall, he reminded me in a timely manner. I was covered in blood at that time. You might not have seen my face clearly. With his reminder, I remembered it. 2 years ago, shortly after I was dumped, I couldn't help reflecting on myself all the time. So to ease the pain, whenever I was free, I would go for a long walk on the street. Once, unfortunately, I encountered a street brawl. I was okay, but a boy on the roadside was stabbed while trying to save someone. Everyone on the street was so frightened that they fled in all directions. Only I stood there. I was in so much pain at that time that I had a terrible thought. So with an indescribable state of mind and ignoring the danger that the assailant hadn't gone far away, I rushed forward to give first aid to the boy. Fortunately, in the end, the assailant didn't turn back, and the boy managed to hold on until the ambulance arrived. It was also at that time that I began to wake up from my muddled state. It turned out that I wasn't that bad just because I was abandoned by my longtime lover without a word. At least my hands could still save people. Seeing that I didn't say anything, the boy asked eagerly, "Do you remember? Do you remember?" I was already unconscious when I was carried into the ambulance, and I couldn't find you when I woke up. Unexpectedly, I could meet you again 2 years later. My name is Hayden, with the meaning of hope. Hayden added my contact information and said that he wanted to repay me. He said that even though I was a doctor now, I had no obligation to risk my life to save him at that time. For him, what he wanted to repay was me as a person, not my professional identity. When Hayden spoke, his eyes were shining brightly, which somehow reminded me of a puppy I had raised before, full of enthusiasm and loyalty. Later, I learned that this man who looked like a boy was only 3 years younger than me. 1 month later, on my birthday, my best friend gathered a group of friends to come to my house to celebrate, and Hayden was also there. Looking at his back as he was washing fruits in the kitchen, my best friend secretly nudged me and winked at me, saying, "Well done, Jocelyn. You've got such a young one." I was just about to open my mouth to refute when Hayden came over with the fruits. He handed a strawberry to my mouth and said, "Sister, eat this. It's very sweet." I reached out to take it, but he dodged and said, "Your hands are dirty. Just eat it like this." The friends around saw this scene and started to cheer. I raised my eyebrows and, not to be outdone, directly ate the strawberry. My soft lips accidentally touched his fingertips. A flush of embarrassment rose on my face, and Hayden also withdrew his hand as if he had been electrocuted. Just then, the doorbell rang. I came back to my senses from the eye contact with Hayden and took this opportunity to get away. But after opening the door, I put away all my smiles. I looked at Jason outside the door and said, "What are you doing here?" Jason stared at me fixedly and said, "I remember today is your birthday. I bought the cake that you used to like the most." And he took out a red velvet box, and there was a ring inside. It was the one I saw when I went shopping with him on the street on the eve of my going abroad. I liked the design and meaning of this ring very much at that time. Jason wanted to swipe his card to buy it for me on the spot, but I refused. I said that when I returned to China, I hoped that this ring could be worn on my hand rightfully. If I hadn't heard what Arya said that day, I might still have felt a bit touched, but now, all I had left was a strong sense of disgust. I frowned and told him to get lost. Jason, however, leaned against the door and said, "Jocelyn, there's a misunderstanding between us. Arya and I are just a fake couple. At that moment, Jason's phone rang. He took out his phone, glanced at it, frowned, and hung up, but a few seconds later, the phone rang again. He looked at me and answered it. Arya's voice came through clearly. She asked Jason when he would come home and said that she had something to tell him. Jason replied perfunctorily that he was busy. Just then, a friend saw that I had been standing at the door for a long time and called me to cut the cake. I thought Arya on the other end of the phone heard it, so she hung up directly. Jason's nonchalant appearance made me feel rather disgusted, so I said, "Jason, since you're married, you should have a sense of family responsibility. 2 years ago, you broke up with me without a word. Now it's really ugly of you to pester your ex-girlfriend. I don't want to be rude to you, but at least don't make me regret that I once loved you." Jason's face turned pale, but he still said, "I know I'm not qualified. I just wanted to see you." At this time, Hayden, seeing that I hadn't come over for a long time, came to look for me. "Sister, who is it?" He half leaned against my back, looking rather intimate. "Who is he?" Jason asked in a trembling voice. Before I could answer, Hayden glanced at the ring in Jason's hand and said, "I'm sister's boyfriend." "Uncle, who are you? The style of this ring looks so old." "Uncle, how could you give someone a ring style from several years ago? It's so shabby." Hayden took advantage of his youthful appearance and called Jason uncle directly. Jason had always been arrogant, and this undoubtedly rubbed his self-esteem on the ground. So he gave me a deep look and then threw the cake and left. I closed the door and turned around to ask Hayden, "When did I become your girlfriend?" "I didn't even know." Hayden blinked his eyes and said innocently, "I just saw that he was pestering sister and wanted to help sister out. Sister won't blame me, right?" Of course I wouldn't. When Arya came to see me, the biopsy results had already come out and cancer was diagnosed. After I blocked all her contact information, she came to the hospital and registered to see me. I asked her as usual during the consultation, but Arya directly took out the medical diagnosis and said, "I've got a terminal illness. I've already signed the divorce agreement. Jocelyn, now I want to help you two get together." I glanced at the diagnosis. It was early-stage cervical cancer. In this case, the best outcome is to have a conization of the diseased part. In more serious cases, a hysterectomy might be needed, but it's not an incurable terminal illness. The doctor should have explained it very clearly to Arya. However, the way she didn't take it seriously and used her illness as a bargaining chip really left me speechless. Indeed, studying medicine can't save a love-struck mind. "Arya, you must have registered with the wrong department. I'm not in the neurology department here." Hearing my sarcasm, Arya looked a bit angry, but she still bit her lip and said to herself, "Jocelyn, it was my fault last time. I shouldn't have poured coffee on you. But I really wanted to tell you the truth. It's been 2 years, and I still haven't won him over. And now that I've got a terminal illness, it's time for me to step aside." "No, lady. This is a hospital consultation room, not a big stage for a drama. Are you acting out a Cheongyao drama here?" I raised my hand to interrupt her self-moving performance and said, "Isn't the so-called truth that Jason's grandma was seriously ill and you two were forced to have a fake marriage? When we just broke up, I might have been too stubborn and couldn't figure out why Jason suddenly broke up with me. Later, I got over it. As an onlooker sees clearly, less than a year after their marriage, Jason's grandma passed away. Jason's grandma had never liked me, thinking that I was from an ordinary family and wasn't good enough for their wealthy family. When I was young and naive, I thought that if I was excellent enough, I could make up for the disadvantages of my family. So I studied hard and insisted on going abroad just to be a bit more worthy of Jason. Who would have thought that fate could be so full of twists and turns? Perhaps his grandma forced him to break up with me and marry Arya before she died. It's not impossible to think about it." Arya widened her eyes and said in disbelief, "Jocelyn, you're very smart. But it's not just that. The most important thing is that Jason thought he had slept with me." She gave a bitter smile on her face. "Actually, I lied to him. We didn't do anything. In the past 2 years, he hasn't touched me. We've always been a fake couple." Arya looked up at me, and a flash of smugness passed through her eyes, but she said, "Jocelyn, Jason is yours now. But this time, I'm the one who's leaving. I'll win. I don't know how long it will take for the first love to become dull like plain rice. I'm giving him back to you." I looked at her and suddenly smiled. "Arya, don't think I don't know what you're thinking. What, is the first love so pure that it gets in the way of your tragic and deep love? Do you have to drag it through the mud, pour dirty water on it, and force it to put on the skin of a vicious female supporting role to prove that the man made a wrong choice and that you are the truest and purest love? Stop disgusting me. I, Jocelyn, returned from studying abroad for many years. I'm in good shape and good looking. Now I'm one of the best surgeons in this hospital. What makes you think I'll want a divorced man? Besides, Hayden, that overgrown puppy, has officially started to court me since my birthday. I'd have to be really stupid to forgive a divorced man who betrayed me." Arya came to see me on purpose after knowing she had cancer. She just wanted to drag me into the mess. She surely didn't tell Jason about her illness. When the truth comes out in the end, if Jason has any feelings for her at all, he'll surely take his anger out on me. At that time, I won't be the pure and flawless first love in his heart anymore. However, all these tricks are based on the assumption that I still want to get back together with Jason. Otherwise, it's just like a clown making a fool of itself. I thought my ill-fated relationship with this couple should have ended by then. Unexpectedly, not long after that, Jason came to see me excitedly, holding the divorce certificate. He said, "Jocelyn, there were misunderstandings between us before. Now I've divorced Arya. I can explain everything to you properly. And you and Hayden aren't together yet, right?" I shifted my gaze away from the chat box with Hayden and said impatiently, "It's true that I haven't accepted Hayden's pursuit yet, but that doesn't mean I'll accept a divorced man. Jason, is it that hard for you to accept the fact that I don't want to get back together with you? I think you should see a psychologist." He stepped forward and wanted to hold my shoulders, but I took a step back to avoid him. Listen to me, Jocelyn. I didn't touch Arya. I got married because my grandma was seriously ill. I had no choice and Arya lied to us. I raised my eyebrows. Lied to us? Jason calmed down his somewhat excited emotions, and there was obvious excitement on his face. Yes. Do you remember the fight we had 3 months before we broke up? I got drunk in a bar. My friends, they called Arya over. When I woke up the next day, I found myself lying in bed with Arya. I didn't know what had happened. Just at that time, my grandma was seriously ill and she forced me to take responsibility for Arya. But now I've divorced Arya. She said that everything was designed by her and nothing happened between us. So Jocelyn, I haven't touched anyone else. Let's start over, okay? So this was Arya's backup plan. First, pretend to let go, and then gradually reveal all the truth to make Jason's guilt towards her reach its peak at the last moment. But why was I the one who was betrayed and used as a tool? Just because I'm the first love in their mouths, do I have to accept this role arrangement? I stared at Jason for a while and saw his expression change and even his eyes dodge. Suddenly, I smiled. Jason, who's the fool between us? Arya has cancer, cervical cancer. You can't not know about it. Although there are many causes of cervical cancer, the probability of getting the disease is mostly related to sexual life. Arya loved Jason so much. How could she have a relationship with someone else? Besides, I've seen her medical records. She had a miscarriage not long ago. She couldn't have cheated during the marriage. As soon as I finished speaking, the color drained from Jason's face. He muttered that it was impossible and then suddenly took out his phone and started making a call like crazy. The number you have dialed is powered off. Why didn't you tell me until now? Do you want to watch her die? Jason shouted out of control. To some extent, Arya did know Jason better than I did. Here comes the misplaced anger. I replied calmly, no more pretending? Sometimes I really wonder how I could have fallen for you back then. I'm not her attending doctor, nor am I anyone's friend among you. I even deeply dislike you too. I don't have any obligation to tell you. Jason said that he had misjudged me as he ran outside. I looked at his back and felt so strange. It turns out that it's true that some people can't see clearly what's going on with each other even after being together for so many years. When Hayden came over, I was sitting on a bench, lost in thought. Sister, what's wrong? He handed me a glass of juice while carefully observing my expression. I'm okay, I said out of habit. The next second, I was pulled into his arms. He said, it's okay if you don't want to talk about it. If you're tired, just lean on my arms and have a rest. I didn't respond or resist. Naturally, I couldn't see that Hayden's usually moist eyes were full of gloom. I saw Jason again half a month later. He came to beg me to save Arya. I was a bit speechless. Admittedly, I'm one of the best surgeons in this hospital, but what makes him think that I'll be so magnanimous? Besides, I'm not her attending doctor. Arya refuses to be treated, and because of the influence of her emotions, her condition has deteriorated. Jocelyn, for the sake of our past relationship, I'm begging you. If she refuses to be treated, you should beg her. I don't have any feelings for you two now except disgust. Jason, don't forget that you and she cheated on me together. Jason opened his mouth but couldn't say a word. People are really strange sometimes. They even deceive themselves to escape from reality. If it was before I knew Arya was ill, I might have been able to understand the reason why Jason broke up with me back then. After all, instead of confessing his infidelity and making his image in my heart completely dirty, it might be better to say nothing and let me hate him. But he still came to act in front of me, deceiving himself. When you're drunk, you can't even get an erection. Whether he slept with Arya or not, he knew it clearly in his own heart. Not long after Jason left, I received a text message on my phone. The living can't compete with the dead. This time, I'll be the winner. I knew who sent the text message without even thinking about it. She's really not tired of doing all this. I don't know if she was brainwashed by reading too many tragic love novels in the past few years. Arya probably doesn't know that if she doesn't accept treatment, she'll start to have irregular vaginal bleeding, there will be a foul-smelling discharge, and the cancer cells may also metastasize through the lymphatic system. Then it won't just be abdominal pain. With this love-struck mind, even Wang Baochuan would kneel down and kowtow to her, calling her the ancestor grandma. Really, relatives and friends are all illusory. Only the man who doesn't love her is eternal. My punishment for him is to let him lose me forever. TSK, how tragic. It's a pity that she's also someone who has received 9 years of compulsory education. Now even illiterate ants know to be independent and strong, but she's still playing this old trick. I was too lazy to see them again. Coincidentally, there was an opportunity for an overseas assignment in the hospital, to study and communicate in a hospital in another province for a year. I couldn't wait to stay away from these people with messed up minds, so I gladly accepted it. When I came back from the overseas assignment, I still heard some gossip from the little nurses. I heard that Jason's family company somehow offended the leading enterprise in the industry and was suppressed many times. It seemed to be on the verge of collapse. Jason was busy with the company's affairs and taking care of the troublesome Arya. He was really stretched too thin. Knowing that they were not having a good time, I felt relieved. But people just can't avoid being talked about. In the evening, when Hayden invited me to have dinner at a restaurant, we happened to run into Jason. Maybe he was under too much pressure. He looked so haggard. When he saw me, he was stunned for a moment, and then he shifted his gaze to Hayden. He said, "I've already done what you said. Can you stop now?" Hayden smiled and said, "Of course I'm not an untrustworthy person. I stopped a month ago. But when a building is about to collapse, any gust of wind can blow it down." Jason left with a dejected look on his face. I raised my eyebrows and looked at Hayden. He tactfully explained, "I asked my family for help and used some little tricks to teach him a lesson. He's always harassing you, sister. I know you can handle it by yourself, but I just can't stand him." It turned out that Hayden was the second son of the leading enterprise in the industry. Another rich second generation. After what happened with Jason, I really didn't want to get involved with these wealthy families again. Consequently, my attitude towards Hayden also became cold. Hayden probably guessed the root of the problem and came to me, saying pitifully, "Sister, in my family, we have freedom in marriage and love. We don't do the arranged marriage thing. Besides, I have an older brother, and I'm just someone who gets dividends every year. Please don't ignore me." Then, he took out an admission notice for a civil servant position in the city. Is this what you've been busy with this year? Hayden nodded as a matter of course. Yes. I got admitted by my own ability. Look, you're a doctor and I'm a civil servant. We're a perfect match. All right then. The next time I heard news about Arya was when she came to the hospital and had a hysterical tantrum. I heard that she was in the gynecologist's consulting room, crying and begging the doctor to help her, saying that she didn't want to have her uterus removed and didn't want to die. It was she who said she wouldn't get treated in the first place, but now she was begging the doctor to find a way. But doctors aren't gods, and cancer cells won't be moved by her so-called great love. What could have been solved by conization of the lesion had already developed to the point where hysterectomy was needed. She had no other choice. Moreover, the trick of playing hard to get that she had used was seen through by Jason. Even a filial son may not be dutiful beside a sickbed for a long time, let alone in a marriage full of scheming. I heard that Jason was repeatedly torn between annoyance and the fear of losing, and his attitude towards Arya was just like that. The two of them were torturing each other and wearing down the already thin affection between them. But all of this had nothing to do with me long ago. By that time, Hayden had already won the approval of my parents. With his sweet words, he made my parents overjoyed. I looked at the bright moon outside the window, leaned in his arms and asked, "The moonlight shines high in the sky and never intends to provoke anyone. Why is it that there are always dark clouds trying to cover it, pull it down and roll it in the mud?" Hayden said, "The moonlight is so beautiful. If people don't try to block it and defile it, how can the street lamps on the roadside shine brightly? For those who have seen the moonlight, there will always be only the moonlight in their eyes. Then where's your moonlight? My moonlight is in my arms, shining forever and never setting.